This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Mike, so you are head of SEO at 97th Floor, and many of the directors, heads, VPs that I talked to didn't start out in SEO or even in marketing at the beginning of their career. What kind of brought you into the SEO space? I'm curious about that journey.
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually was a manager of a restaurant, my parents' restaurant actually, and that was my life plan, was to go be a restaurateur like my parents and go and do it. And I started kind of dabbling with local SEO, thought it was kind of cool, like trying to get better visibility on maps and optimizing Google Business Profile and all that stuff. That was my first exposure to SEO. I still didn't really know what it was. But then I was still in college, and I had a friend that was working at a link building agency actually, and he recommended I do an internship there. And so I did a lot of link building. And then that was kind of my step into SEO, was like learning a little bit more about the algorithm and how it works and ranking factors and everything like that. And so that's when I really got like hooked on SEO, was in that internship and that job. And then that led me to 97th Floor, and been here since then and never want to go back to restaurants again.
Yeah, agreed. I've also been in restaurants, bartending, serving for like 6 years before I got into other sales opportunities. But you know what? It's great for customer service.
Oh,
because you have to deal with people's crap no matter what they say, right?
Yeah, totally. I feel like I can empathize with people a little bit better because of restaurants, because there's nothing more ridiculous than being red in the face angry about your burrito, like, so whatever your other problem you're dealing with, I can empathize with it, because I have to deal with way dumber problems.
Your face is as red as the rojo sauce on top of this enchilada.
Yeah, gosh, exactly.
There's a couple of directions that I could go based on what you said. And I think we'll go in the direction of like leadership. You're talking about empathy. I've talked to some folks who say when they're hiring for employees, particularly customer facing roles, but even in back-end roles, not as much. They're looking for experience outside of marketing because they're, more well-rounded. Like you said, they're more empathetic. What's your approach to leadership at 97th Floor, being the head of SEO?
Yeah, I something I think about and try and improve on all the time is trying to source the best talent for this type of role, like a client-facing role. And honestly, it's SEO is a difficult thing to explain to anybody, and especially someone who works in marketing or doesn't work in marketing, that has no experience in SEO. And you want them to buy into your recommendations. You want them to buy into your solutions that you're trying to pose to them, how to optimize their site. But if they don't really understand what you're talking about, or quite frankly, you don't care about what you're talking about, it's hard to get that buy-in. And so you have to be able to know how to talk to their needs. How is the solution you're recommending going to fix their problem, solve their problems? How are they going to get more eyeballs on their website, get more revenue coming through their SEO channel in general? And so I really look for and try and coach my specialists, my SEOs, on how to talk to their clients in a way that's going to make them care about their recommendations. How are they going to sell their recommendations to the client? Just getting them in the door and getting them through the sales pipeline isn't enough, all right? Like, we have to actually get results for them. And big part of that is being able to talk to them in a way that's going to make them care.
Yeah, I love that. And you make a really good point. Like, a lot of these owners, tell me a little bit more. 97th Floor, are you guys dealing mostly with like mid-market, SMBs, enterprise? I know you've had experience with enterprise clients and have driven some results, particularly in SEO for some big clients. But who do you guys work with now? Yeah,
we're primarily mid-market to enterprise. But we do work with a lot of startups that are well-funded and have good market fit. And so that's where that kind of relationship comes in, of how to talk to people who don't really understand the importance of SEO or might not understand why it's needed. I mean, we do have some SMB clients, and we take good care of them, and that's where all my specialists start out, is on SMB and working with those kind of smaller clients, and then once they've been able to cut their teeth on those smaller clients, we move them into kind of the more enterprise space.
What's the difference? What's the difference in approach or strategy between product market fit with a startup versus, an enterprise? Like, I guess, are there foundational differences, or is the foundation kind of the same in your approach and then you're just tweaking things,
Yeah, the main difference, I think, is that the enterprise companies usually have like a very legacy site. So like it's passed through many different teams, content teams, SEO teams, agencies, whoever, web managers, whoever it is. And there's a lot on there, right? And there's a lot that like the people you're working with, your points of contact there, don't even know why it is the way it is, right? And you have to work around those problems and get through that. And your focus is a little bit more on, how do I take what's already there? What are we already ranking for? And how can we improve those rankings? What can we trim out of this, and like how can we really like latch on to the momentum that the site has in these different areas, versus a startup, which is like, okay, we have kind of a clean slate. We can run with a strategy, but we do need to know about the audience first. We don't have any historical data. We don't have any baseline data. So we have to understand the audience, do some market research to figure out what do they need, and go from there. So it's a little bit different, but the core principles that we execute on are the same.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like what you said. There's oftentimes we'll see sites that are just very bloated with content, and it almost cannibalizes the results in the SERPs. Oh, yeah. And I know you've kind of been a champion of like thinning down and having higher quality content and consolidating. What does that look like in practicality, or I guess like in execution?
Yeah, and in execution, it's based off of the theory that Google and other LLMs want to be able to efficiently crawl your site and access the information that they want to serve to users in an efficient way, and be able to read and understand it efficiently. And that content bloat, that like cannibalization that you're talking about, where you have duplicate content or content that's like two different pages that are optimized for the same keyword, like that type of thing is very inefficient for a crawler to come across, right? And they quite frankly don't know what to do with it. They don't know which page you really care about, which page you want it to rank. So they don't do anything with it. And then the biggest thing that we want in the age of AI and LLMs is to make it as easy as possible for the crawlers to understand what it is you do. LLMs, like, the dirty secret is they're very lazy. They're very lazy crawlers. They're lazy robots that don't really like, they don't have as sophisticated of an algorithm as Google does, right? To be able to parse out information and figure out if you're really a trusted authority or whatever. But what an LLM is looking for is the easiest answer possible to a query, because they have to generate it so fast. And so making it as easy as possible for those LLMs to understand what you're talking about and who you are is so important. And if you have just so much stuff on your website of just like random articles from 2015 that don't matter or don't mean anything anymore, that's getting in the way of those systems seeing the good stuff. And then if you have a bunch of articles that are talking about the same thing, it's going to be a sign or a pattern established of redundancy in low quality content.
And that pattern that you're talking about, can that actually have it sounds like it has a negative impact, if there's redundant content, or like a blog that's like slightly differently worded, but they're 3 years apart, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. And especially for Google, like Google cares about crawling only the pages that it needs to crawl, right? Like they're crawling trillions of pages, right? All the time, billions of pages every day, every hour, whatever. They need to be able to do that efficiently and index those pages efficiently. And if you're serving Google just a bunch of random stuff or pages that don't matter or have any meaning or that are duplicate, then that's not efficient for Google to be able to crawl. And that's establishing the pattern that I was just talking about to Google to say, hey, Google's going to say, hey, this site doesn't produce high quality, unique, helpful content. And they're going to start like deprioritizing crawling your site. They're going to crawl you less. They're going to index your pages less. We see it all the time. Like, I have plenty of research to back that up, but it's also been like actually stated by Google before. Like, they're going to, if they've noticed that pattern, they're going to start diminishing the authority of your site.
So we're talking about on page, and I've had several conversations recently where people are talking about they're rewriting content on page to be more like bold headers, and then just like they're reorienting the H1s and H2s to read less like a 1,500 word blog and more like a 750 word checkpoint essentially. Is that something like, other than a strategy like that, are you what's the way to rewrite, or how do you think about on page in terms of optimizing for LLMs?
Yeah, I think that's a solid strategy, right? To focus on the heading and then the body text underneath the heading. Oftentimes those headings will be questions, and then right underneath it in the body text will be the answer to that question that was posed in the heading. Or what LLMs really love is structured data. So any sort of list, any sort of table, graph, whatever you have, like LLMs eat that up. That's a really easy thing for them to fetch. And so having that organized and having data visualized in some sort of way on your page is a really strong way of optimizing for an LLM. The other piece that I would say too is like we're talking about just one page on a site, and that's really awesome to do that. But then have internal links going out to other places on your site that are semantically relevant to what you're talking about on that one page that we're talking about. So the LLM can see you have a ton of you have a wealth of information on your domain about this subject.
Yeah, that's kind of where my next question was leading to, is in more of like the internal linking strategy. From what I understand, and just to maybe help me clarify, reflecting back to you, is instead of having like a bunch of different blogs or content that could be considered redundant by SERPs or even by LLMs, you're saying have essentially fewer pages, but with stronger internal linking strategy. So it's easier to read from LLMs. And then you're also building authority by saying, hey, even though these sites or these pages are relevant, it's not duplicate content.
Yeah, exactly. And the anchor text strategy for those internal links is important too, because you're showing Google this anchor text represents what this page is about. Nice. And so if you want to know more about what's in this anchor text, go to this page. And it also shows establishes the link between the two topics, between the two pages. And so you're saying, hey, we know a lot about this topic that's on this page. Also, this subtopic, here's a whole nother page about it.
I like that. The word the 50-cent term that comes to mind is semantic relevancy. I don't know if that's a term, but that's what it sounds like.
I mean,
right?
Yeah. I say it all the time, so I don't know if it's if I made it up or what, but like at the end of the day, that's what Google is a semantic search engine, just looking for terms related to one another. So if you can show Google you have what they're looking for in a subject or in a topic or in an industry, then they're going to prioritize you in your content.
And with the internal link building strategy, there's also external link building, which you have a background in. I'm curious how in this new age, right? LLMs, AI overviews, AEO, GEO, whatever you want to call it these days. It's still SEO, right? It's still freaking SEO. Let's be clear.
Just call it search. I don't know why we have to have different names for it.
It's still search. What's your backlinking strategy? How are you looking to build portfolios in 2025?
Yeah, I would go back to what I said earlier about the sophistication of Google's algorithm versus LLMs. LLMs are just trying to eat up content as much as possible. And so the big thing everybody's saying is citations, right? Like citations, build as many citations or get as many citations as possible with your brand on it or something about your brand. And I think that's valid for right now. But the LLMs are going to catch up, and the backlink strategy that we deploy for traditional search is going to be the primary strategy that's needed for LLMs in the future too. I think that the citations the LLMs are trying to eat up is just like a very nuanced way of trying to establish credibility for a brand. And that's the same thing that backlinks are doing, but in a very much more sophisticated way for the Google algorithm. Does that make sense? I don't know if those two...
Yeah. I mean, you're basically that semantic relevancy, but with the additional context of a link to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically,
like LLMs are going to figure out that my boss here, she's our VP of client services. She always says that SEOs are the reason we can't have nice things, because as soon as we find out about the ranking algorithm, we game it. We gamify it. We try and take advantage of it as much as possible, right? And citations are just that same way. They're an easy thing to show LLMs, to establish our brand authority with an LLM, and that's what everybody's going to do until it's too gamified, until it's too overused and not a relevant ranking factor anymore. And I think backlinks is a much more sophisticated way of showing an algorithm that you have authority in a space, that people talk about you, that you have that semantic relevancy from a different domain, kind of giving you that vote of confidence, giving Google that vote of confidence that this domain does know what they're talking about in this subject. I mean, so it's a much more sophisticated way, and it's going to catch up. So I think that that's important to understand, and why we shouldn't be stepping away from traditional backlinking just yet, and why we shouldn't be too quick to just jump all in on citations and be and kind of neglect those backlink profiles. They're going to be important in the future. They're still important today, and it's going to be weighted eventually.
Yeah, and it's a sound fundamental. I would say like backlinking is a fundamental strategy of SEO. It's one of the backbones. And yes, it will pivot, it will iterate, but to your point, I don't think it's necessarily going away. What I have heard is more specifically, agencies are placing more importance on digital PR and kind of going that direction with like press releases, particularly for like local clients. How are you guys approaching digital PR, or is that part of the plan? Like what's your take?
Well, I think that digital PR is important for any brand to invest in, because establishing a brand and a brand identity is your best way of hedging against any change to whatever is going to happen in our industry, right? Like digital SEO and search is changing so much, and having an established brand is really the way to hedge against any sort of change that could happen. But especially in the world of AI and LLMs, like where you kind of need those bottom of funnel searches, those branded searches coming into your site and driving that traffic. So I think digital PR is important, and we should be doing it. I don't know that it's necessarily like the answer to backlinking.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not like it's almost, I hesitate to say it's a luxury item, but it kind of is, although it is important, like you mentioned, building a brand in general, whether that's through a backlinking profile or citations, whatever. Good content is good content. And, if it just happens to be in a press release with a good publication, all the better is what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely.
You were mentioning a little bit about the bottom of the funnel content. Are you approaching different stages of the funnel differently in terms of like how your team is writing or how you're optimizing pages, or is it all kind of just pretty much the same? Like you mentioned, writing content for LLMs to be able to peruse through very quickly. Does that change based on funnel stage?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the first thing to realize and learn is that SEO has its place in the funnel. And it depends on the industry, right? Like there's some industries where it definitely has a place in all parts of the funnel, or like solely bottom of funnel. It's not always top of funnel or not always middle of funnel, but it has its place, right? And you have to have a multi-channel strategy to be able to be successful in your marketing efforts, and knowing where the other channels are coming in those campaigns and in that funnel is so important to know how to build an effective SEO strategy where, okay, your role as the SEO is to build that top of funnel demand generation. We're building a base, we're building a brand for then ads to come in and say, okay, we're going to retarget all these people that we've attracted through SEO, or we're going to build campaigns that target an audience that is interested in the topics that we wrote about with SEO, and that's going to move them further down the funnel. That's a really important piece, is knowing first, where does SEO fit? And then also, where does the content that you're writing fit in the funnel, so that you can craft a CTA that actually matches that. There's so many times, Austin, where I see a SaaS company that will say like, here's 5 tips for like an office party or whatever, like some dumb, super top of funnel, high level content piece. And then the CTA is book a demo to understand our SaaS product. Like why, like there's no connection there. Like, okay, maybe that content piece has some relevancy to your audience. match a CTA with it that's going to put them into a nurture campaign or put them into like your email newsletter, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take advantage of that audience. So knowing how does SEO fit, and also matching your call to action with your where that content piece is going to fall in the funnel.
Yeah, man, that is super smart to just align and the CTA with the content. It's like something that seems so obvious to someone who's had a lot of experience in the industry, but and maybe even those enterprise clients that you're working with, I'm sure there's been instances where you go in during onboarding and you're doing some sort of an audit. And you're like, man, we have a lot of room. Like, we can get some easy wins on this guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious what other, especially during onboarding or like for a new client, assuming that you've kind of fixed all the problems with continuing clients, but specifically when you're onboarding someone new, are there like common mistakes that you see, like the one you just mentioned where the CTA doesn't align with the content? What are some quick wins that are common?
Yeah, I think we've touched on it already, but internal linking is a super easy, quick win to be able to show Google, hey, we have this great content piece. Also, look at all these other pieces of content that is semantically relevant to that other piece of content we were just talking about. And there's a lot of people that say, okay, well, we do have internal links, and they're like in the footer or something, right? And or like in the header or in like a sidebar menu or whatever. But the important piece is to have an internal link with an intentional strategy of what's your anchor text, what page is it going to, and where in the body does it sit, and what's the surrounding text around that anchor text. And I think that's probably like a really easy, quick win for a lot of sites that there's not a lot of people doing that, getting that right. And I think that's a low hanging fruit opportunity. And then also just take inventory often of what you have on your site so that you can know what you have to work with. Like maybe you already have a page about a topic that you want to write about that's just not ranking in a visible spot, but it is ranking. So Google already associates it with the keyword you're looking for. So maybe take that page and re-optimize it, get it up higher in the search results rather than creating a new page. And that cuts out the redundant content.
I love that. And you mentioned that LLMs are, funnily, you mentioned that they're like lazy. And I was like, hey man, like the AI is reflecting the user as well. Like I am just as lazy, right? I want as little work as possible. Do you have like tools that help you do that? Like looking through the site, finding opportunities for internal linking? I guess I'm asking, what's your tech stack that are like the go-tos?
Screaming Frog is my favorite preferred crawler. People sometimes might not like Screaming Frog because it doesn't in the cloud. It's actually like an application on your desktop and it runs locally on your desktop. I like that, and it gives you a lot of freedom to kind of organize the data how you want and visualize it how you want it. And one of the features of Screaming Frog is it shows you all of the existing internal links. So you can say, not only are we going to go in and add those internal links, but we're going to optimize the existing ones. And then it's also really beneficial to visualize your site structure too, and see if there's any ways that you can efficiently better show LLMs or better show Google what you are talking about and what you're an expert in because of that site structure. So that's for crawling purposes. We like Screaming Frog, and then we use Ahrefs for a lot of stuff, basically everything else. And BrandRadar has been a really good tool. It is pretty pricey. It's been a great tool from Ahrefs on visualizing how LLMs see you.
And you said BrandRadar does that LLM kind of visualization?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up. So I'm curious, like in the future, SEO continues to evolve. We'll develop more acronyms and have more debates, right? Have more hot takes on where things are going. Is there a certain, like voice search, or is there a certain technology that's coming out that you're bullish on in the next few years?
AI agents or agentic AI is pretty mind-blowing. I don't know if you've used any of the like Gemini or Gemini's like browser plugin for Chrome, or Comet from Perplexity, or any of those. Like Comet from Perplexity is the one I've been using the most, and it is wild. Like it has like this little sidebar assistant, and you can tell it to do anything and it'll do it. Like my CEO told me that he told Comet to go buy movie tickets for him and his wife. Said, this is the time, this is my location. Go buy movie tickets for me for this movie on Friday night. And it did. It just went and did it. Yeah. Wild, right? Like he never went on a website and he had movie tickets in his inbox.
What?
That's insane to me.
Just to pause you right there. So I'm aware that, ChatGPT agent can go find you options, but it stops at the transaction page. Is that, is there something I'm missing there, or is that like already out? Like the purchasing?
I believe that the last step was hit checkout, right? Or whatever.
Sure.
It downloads your Chrome profile, Comet does, and so it has your wallet from Chrome on there, and so it autofilled everything for him anyway. So
oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
So that is unique to download that Chrome profile, because I was looking to build an N8N, and I was basically in ChatGPT agent. I was like, can you like plug into my N and like also my CRM and kind of put some stuff together? And it wasn't quite there yet, unfortunately. But that's really cool. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, it's wild. Like the craziest thing to me, it's not the craziest, but it maybe seems kind of simple, but it was so wild to me. I asked Comet, when is my next meeting? And it told me. And then I said, and it was in like 2 hours from when I asked it. And then I said, okay, 1 minute before, go into the calendar invite and open the Zoom link. And then sure enough, a minute before the meeting, Zoom just started running on my computer. It was wild.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
That is cool. That is cool.
It seems like kind of like a simple thing, but it blew my mind. I was blown away by it. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is rocking my world too, because even earlier today, I was like just about to go outside for a walk, stretch my legs a little bit. And then I was like, let me just double check and make sure I don't have anything coming up in the next literally 4 minutes. And wouldn't you know it?
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah. And then I logged into the Slack. I logged into Slack on my browser, on the browser for Comet. And I asked it, is there any unactioned items, or is there any requests for me from the last like 3 days? And it gave me a summary, and there was like 2 in there that I totally missed, or that I it's so Agentic AI is going to be crazy for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But especially once it crosses that finish line of you don't have to press checkout anymore, like you said.
Yeah. And that's where we have to, I think that there won't be any shortage of cybersecurity sales jobs in the future. Let's just say that, right?
Yeah.
Holy crap. That's insane. I want to be conscious of time as we wrap it up here. Yeah, I guess where's the best place that people can find you? Is it LinkedIn? Where can they learn more about 97th Floor?
Yeah, LinkedIn is great. Please go ahead and connect with me. Like, this was an easy yes, Austin, to come on this podcast, because I love nerding out about SEO. So if you ever want to just chat SEO or talk cool nerdy things about search, let's do it. So hit me up.
I love that. And last thing I'll leave you with, kind of like the diary of a CEO, they ask one question from the previous guest. I don't have that, by the way. And also Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. One of my favorite prompts is, if you could put one message on a billboard for the world to see, and it's about SEO or it's about marketing, what would your message on the billboard be?
That's a really good question. I would say your first step to building effective marketing campaigns is knowing what your audience needs. So figure that out, and the rest will fall into place, and provide that value. I think content marketing is one of the funnest aspects of marketing, the funnest fields of marketing, because you get to provide value to people before they've ever purchased anything from you. You get to provide value, some kind of education, entertainment, whatever it might be, to your audience, and establish that trust, establish that relationship with a brand and their audience before they've ever made a transaction. And then when the time comes where they need to make that transaction, it's going to be a really easy way to say yes to purchasing. So understand the audience, what they need, and provide that value to them.
I love it. And wise words coming from someone with a lot of experience and a lot of pull in a great company that works with other great companies. So Mike, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Y'all heard Mike, where you can go find him on LinkedIn. I appreciate all our listeners for being here, and we'll see you the next time.
All right, we'll see you. Thanks, Austin.
Cheers.